Hello there, Humphrey Mpairwe here and Ahmed Boupa here, Vultr. In today's Tech Talk, we'll discuss deploying self-hosted content applications using Coolify and Strapi Vultr Marketplace applications. By using this combo, you're able to create highly interactive web content applications to enable you to distribute and create your content freely. To begin with, self-hosted content is the practice of you distributing and publishing your own content depending on your own terms and conditions. Self-hosted content enables you to have complete control and ownership of hosted content. It supports continuous updates and upgrades to your content depending on your needs. And you can effortlessly distribute your content using multiple content and communication channels at your disposal. Among the applications that enable you to actually run self-hosted web content applications is Coolify. Coolify is an open source self-hosted deployment platform that allows you to deploy multiple self-hosted applications on your server without you having to handle any dependency or configuration packages right on your instance. Coolify supports Docker and other containerization platforms, and it enables the deployment of applications and services in one click as opposed to you having to run through multiple commands to deploy a single application. Coolify supports the integration and customization of external services, enabling you to integrate Coolify with other managed services such as Vultr's managed services like databases, CDN, and object storage to further enhance the power of your hosted applications. On the other hand, Strapi is an open source headless CMS that supports RESTful and GraphQL APIs to host your content and publish it depending on your target platforms. Strapi integrates with front-end frameworks such as React and Hugo to help you manage the distribution of your content and publishing to your target user audience. Strapi is highly extensible with plugins and collection types and uses a modern web administration control panel to enable you manage and publish content. And so, to see how actually you can use Coolify and Strapi in action, I have already deployed two Vultr instances that run the Vultr Marketplace application for Coolify and Strapi. On Coolify, I am running a React.js application that is deployed through a public Git repository, and Strapi does actual publishing of this content that is visible on the React.js application. And so, without any further ado, let me take you right into the demo process. So to get started with our demo, let's first of all go ahead to the Vultr Customer Portal, click Compute, and click Deploy to actually set up new instances using the Vultr Marketplace applications for Coolify and Strapi. So select your desired type and select a location that is actually much closer to you. For instance, I'll go ahead and select London for my case, and in the Choose Image section, select Marketplace Apps and select Coolify. Now let's go ahead and select any specification for this server that I would like. For the best results, select a server with 4 virtual CPUs and 16 gigs of RAM. And now select any additional features such as Vultr VPC that you like to enable. If you have cloud init user data, you can also add it from this step. Now let's give this server a host name, for example, Tech Talks Coolify, and click Deploy now to actually deploy this instance. The same applies to Strapi. Just navigate to your Deploy New Instance page, and within the Marketplace applications, this time around select Strapi. Once again, choose your desired plan, additional features, and set a host name and click Deploy to actually go ahead and deploy this server. So I have deployed these servers, and right within the default Coolify administrator page, we are required to create an account. So let's create our own account that we shall use to manage this Coolify server. And click Register to actually create a new administrator account on this server. The same applies to Strapi. The default page requires us to actually create the first administrator account. So I'll go ahead and fill in these fields as well. Now let's start to actually deploy our Strapi instance. We have Coolify that is deployed and we have Strapi that is ready. So To get started, I have a Git repository and I also have a React application on my Ubuntu 24.04 development server. And just to show you my terminal session, right within it, let's actually go ahead and set up Git with my name that we shall be using, and then just add an email. Now, let's actually go ahead and create our first commit, initialize Git, and add all files in this directory. So you can go ahead, set up Git, and add your repository using your personal access token and GitHub repository to actually have push privileges to your own repository. Make sure that all these files in the React directory are actually uploaded to this repository. For example, this is how my repository looks like, and it already has the initial commit with a dummy username. So I can use this repository to actually deploy this application using Coolify. Now that we have our React application already pushed to a GitHub repository, which could actually be private or public depending on your own preferences, let's actually navigate into the Coolify deployment page. And as you can see, we have this option right here called public repository. And if you have a private registry, you can also select this right here. So I'll select public since my own repository is actually public. And once the page loads, let me go ahead and enter in my repository that I am using to actually host my React application. So let's click check repository to actually see the data that Coolify will actually find on this repository and if it's actually valid. And based on these results, Coolify has detected that my React app is running on the TCP port 3000, and Coolify has selected the Nixpax build pack to actually use with my application. So let's click continue to go ahead and set up our React application using Coolify. And right within this configuration interface, Coolify gives us a free domain to start with, and it's automatically generated using your server IP. If you have your own domain pointed to your Vultr server, use this instead of the custom domain depending on your needs. So let's come right here into the build section, and in the build command, let's enter npm run build. And in the start command, let's enter npm start, because these commands are used by Coolify to actually start our React application like we would in our development environment. So come right here and click reset to Coolify generated labels in order to have Coolify use its own labels with your application. So after that, simply click save. And if the save operation is actually complete, we are ready to click deploy. When you click deploy, we would have actually installed this application and deployed it using Coolify on this server. So just give this process some time and make sure that you monitor the logs. If your application is deployed successfully, your logs should look like the ones below. If you enable actual debug logs, you'll be able to see more information about the deployment of your application. For example, my application is now in the running state as displayed in the Coolify deployment page and deployment log. So let me actually use the generated link, which is this, to access my application. And since it's a React application, I have configured it to actually go ahead and fetch products from my Strapi using the Strapi URL. Just to give you a glimpse into my source code, I have an app.js file. So within the app.js file, I have some basic styling, which displays a simple count of the articles that have been fetched from Strapi. So if we go down right into my article card template, I have a couple of fields that I'm fetching from Strapi. These include title, sample text, and image data. This means that these fields, I'm actually populating them on my React app. And my React app expects these fields, title, sample, and img to be present in my API data that is actually pushed by Strapi. So just to show you a little more, this application actually displays an image from the format thumbnail URL that is actually published by Strapi using the API. So let's go ahead and populate some data into this application. And as you have noted, this is my server IP that I'm using to access the Strapi application. But nothing is set up for now, and we can go ahead and do this. So let's navigate back to Strapi. So let's first go ahead and create our first content type in order to actually get Strapi started. So click create your first content type to set up this Strapi instance. And let's first of all build a collection. Just click create new collection type, and let's just call this article. So just make sure that you do keep note of the API ID in plural form, because you will use this to actually upload, access, and view the published data from Strapi. So click continue to actually create this content type. And now let's just activate a few fields. For example, let's select text and let's give this a simple name that is already identified in our React app. So this will be sample, and click finish. Let's create another field called img to actually store some media files. And then again, let's create the text field that has title. So if we click finish, this is how our basic Strapi application actually looks like. If you click save, just wait for Strapi to restart and actually apply these new changes, because a collection is the most important data set in Strapi. So now that our Strapi is done with restarting, you can see that we have these three fields activated: sample, img, and title. And our React application is currently empty. It means there is no data, even if we go ahead and use our API to actually see if we can get some data. So now that Strapi is done with restarting, you can see that we have our fields, sample, img, and title. These same fields are referenced in our React application that is actually redeployed on Coolify. You have to make sure that these fields actually exist and each and every specification matches what's published by Strapi in order to have it displayed in your React app. So our React app is currently empty. As you may see, it has the count 0. So let's go ahead and actually create some content in Strapi and make sure it's published using the API. By default, since we have no data here, by clicking Content Manager, you are able to see any published content. And you can see we have 0. This means it matches our 0 tag here. And actually, if we go to our API endpoint that is published by Strapi, you can see that there is no data. The total count is 0. So let's just create some content. For example, let's create a new entry. Sample is my description field, so let me just give it something like sample tech talk. And then let's just give this something like Ubuntu. And so just to upload images, I have added a couple of images: a Ubuntu logo, a Vultr logo, and a Coolify logo into my Strapi media library, as you may see here, from my own local development computer. So for instance, let's just select the Ubuntu logo and click finish. Now let's save. So now we have some content populated right into Strapi, but it's not published. So let's click publish. We have a success notice. So let's just check the API endpoint and see if we have some data. So as you can see, after refreshing, we actually have our sample with the description, sample tech talk doc, title is right there, and image is actually populated in form of 3 types. We have a thumbnail, small, large, and medium. So depending on your React application type, you can fetch image data using any of these attributes. So the React application cannot access this data right now, even if we do refresh it right here. This is because we have not set up any permissions. So let's just go to settings. And now go to rows, click public, which enables any user or any machine on the internet to actually access this content. Let's select our collection type, which is article. And now let's select find and findOne to actually apply these privileges to all public users. So let's click save. And now that the role is defined, let's refresh our API to verify that we can actually access this data. And now, as you can see, we have access to the Strapi data that has been published. So if we go right into the React app and refresh it just a little bit, you will see that we shall have one article with our content published. So as I declared earlier, my source code includes img, and img uses the thumbnail, the URL format that is actually published from the Strapi data. So just like that, we have pushed published data from Strapi, and this data is now visible in the Coolify application, which is actually a React.js application we deployed from my personal GitHub repository after development from my own development machine of Ubuntu. So let's actually go ahead and experiment with this push type a little more to see how you can actually leverage this content and build your own applications to consume content published through Strapi. So let's create a new entry. This time around, let's call it Vultr Tech Talks, and let's just give it a title of Vultr and select the IMG field again. This time around, let's select the Vultr logo I uploaded from my development workstation. So let's save, because you cannot publish without saving, and let's publish this new content. Right now, if we go back to the API and refresh it a little bit, you will see that we have some new data right here. So the new data has the title Vultr. So this means this data is now accessible by all applications that have access to this API endpoint. Let me go ahead into the React app and refresh a bit to see if this data is actually visible. And now we do have a second article, which is Vultr Tech Talks, and our count is now 2, depending on my source code and configuration of this React app. So let's experiment one last field and just create a new entry. This time around, let's call it Coolify and let's give it a title of React app. Let me give it an image of the Coolify logo and click finish, save and publish. Verify if the API has this new content, and yes, right into my title is right there. Let's verify if our React app actually has this content as well. So you can see that we now have a third article with the title React app, description, Coolify work, and a simple logo. And so, as we have witnessed in this demo, you can self-host your own content using the Strapi headless CMS to push content using APIs, and use a different framework such as React or Hugo to actually pull this content and distribute it depending on your own terms or target audience preferences. You can actually restructure this content, give it a new design, or match your own needs. And to further enhance the speed of your content, you can integrate Vultr managed services such as Vultr CDN pull zones or push zones to actually deliver this content much faster to your users, depending on their actual location around the world. And so, I hope you did enjoy this tech talk. If you did, I would like to thank you for watching and see you in the next Vultr Tech Talk. Once again, thank you for watching.